Hello, welcome to ABC Adoptees Born in China podcast. I'm Tara and I am talking to Grace. Grace, you are in Central Time in the US, right?
Yes, I am in Chicago right now.
Chicago. Okay. I just talked to somebody else who was in Chicago.
Oh,
I wish I remember the person's name, but yeah, we were talking. I think I got on the topic of time zones, and then they're like, yes, one hour behind Eastern time zone. Not
yes.
that different.
I was in Michigan for 4 years, and Michigan is in Eastern time zone for some reason, and it completely threw me off. It's
Oh,
farther east than you would think because of the lake in between, like Wisconsin and Illinois, and
that's
then we
it.
were in Michigan, but it's weird, and I don't think I really realized that it was in a different time zone until I moved there. So that was just a weird little awakening.
Ah. Yes, because Michigan's considered Midwest, no?
It is, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But Michigan, parts of Ohio, and parts of Indiana, I believe, are all Eastern time.
Yes, yes, that's right. And I do, yeah, because I do know, I mean, Ohio is a really wide state, so that
Yeah.
that checks out. Like the furthest western part of Ohio, I think is like 3 hours probably behind, I'm
Oh
assuming.
my gosh.
I don't know.
I
I'm
don't know.
not an
My
expert.
geography is actually very bad.
Okay, I learned something new too. But Grace, you're also a Chinese adoptee, I take
Yes.
it. And reaching out, I was like, I take it you're a Chinese adoptee. You want to talk about your adoption?
Yeah, I mean that's basically all I do these days.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm a PhD candidate doing adoption research. So yeah, I've kind of found a way to make being adopted my entire personality and everyone
Oh my
else's as
gosh.
well.
So your PhD, I mean that I'm sure that requires a lot of research, but
Unfortunately, yeah.
so because I mean what I understand about PhDs is it's a lot of time, of course, but you're pretty much always exposed or dedicated to doing research or in some capacity you like working within your field, and then if it's like adoption too. Yeah, is that it too? It's like you're researching,
Yeah.
but you're also like doing work that has like adoption as a component.
My work, not so much. So I'm very bad at telling a story in short form, so I apologize in advance.
It's
But
all good.
basically, I did my PhD right after undergrad, which is something that I would strongly urge prospective PhD students to consider very
Hmm.
carefully before jumping straight through. But I went right after undergrad, so I was maybe 23 or something like that, and
Yeah.
I'm 28 now, but I wanted to research adoption, so I found a program that, well, one that would take me, and that was fully funded. So I was teaching a teaching assistant and research assistant. It changed each year, and doing that on the side of doing my coursework and my own research. And so I am
Right.
working under Andrea Louie, who wrote a book called How Chinese Are You? And it's a comparative ethnography between Chinese people who were adopted by white parents in the US and Chinese people who were adopted by Asian American parents in the
Mm.
US, and looking at how both families construct an idea of like what it means to be Chinese, what culture is,
Sure.
what race is. Andrea Louie's not adopted, but she is Chinese American and did pretty careful work with the community. So yeah. Mostly
Wow.
looking though at adoptive parents with some interviews with adoptees. And she was kind of early in the
Mm.
stage of non-adoptee researchers to actually um, prioritize to an extent adoptee voices in her work, although her work
Whoa.
is focused with parents.
I see. So has your subject for your whatever you're going to defend been finalized, or is it still like, because I'm sure you can adjust it over time and then eventually
Yeah.
you do like, yeah, and I've heard some of the things that people end up choosing to study or like becomes their final
Yes. Yeah.
defending.
No, absolutely. Yes. Perfect word. So yes, it has changed. It's changed a lot. I started the program in fall of 2019, and then this
Ooh.
weird thing happened the spring of 2020, which is that the entire
Yeah.
world got flipped on its head, it feels like. And so a lot of stuff changed, especially for the adoptee community and just
Hmm.
for us navigating like Asianness with the rise of like anti-Asian racism, or the rise in attention to it, I should say,
Sure, sure.
um, and the murders in Atlanta. And so that kind of started shifting how I was thinking about my research at first. I mean, I would have to go back and read my grad school application to remember actually like what I said I wanted to study. I don't know. I knew I wanted to study something about race and Asian adoptees that were raised in white households and look at how we navigate a sense of racial identity.
Right.
That I knew. I am still doing that to an extent, but it's obviously gotten a little bit more focused because I am in year 6 of the program now.
Mm-hmm.
Learned a little bit. I've done a little stuff, and so now I'm looking more at like community building and looking at the way that social media has started to influence the formation of like adult adoptee communities online. And so I interviewed a handful of folks who are adopted from China and Korea mostly, but also Taiwan, Vietnam, and Thailand as well. And I mean, they were so fun to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
amazing interviews. Just we have such a diverse and interesting community with really incredible things to say. So I feel really privileged that I got to kind of hold some of those stories and I get to share little bits and pieces of them.
Yeah.
I'm writing the dissertation right now, and the hardest part is having to recognize that I don't get to put every single 90-minute interview in my
Mm-hmm.
dissertation. That's not how it works, apparently. I don't just get to relay all the awesome conversations I had. I did that. We did some kind of arts based stuff too. And I had people like take pictures in response to prompts, and we did interviews based off of that. So yeah, it's been really fun. But yeah, mostly just looking at kind of what does community mean for us? What do we need from an adoptee community as more of us continue to come of age? And now with Chinese adoption
Yeah.
ending, us
Mm-hmm.
being kind of this discrete group of people. So what's going to happen when, the
Right.
last Chinese adoptee comes of age? What kind of community are they going to
Yes.
walk into? So I'm hoping it'll be interesting work, but right now
Oh,
I'm
I'm sure.
pretty sick of writing and yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure really being involved with adoption. Oh my gosh, you said you're in the 6th year now. Oof.
Yeah, it's a
And
lot.
you went straight from your undergrad too. Oh my
Yes, which I was
goodness.
not doing adoption in undergrad. I wanted
Hmm.
to be a high school teacher.
Oh, I was actually wondering, is like, are you a teacher? Because you said you were grading, but I guess that's more because you do teaching assistant or like
Yeah, so I actually do
yeah.
teach now part-time in Michigan from like 2019 to 2023, spring of
Mm,
23. And then when I finished like all of my coursework, exams and stuff, I moved here to Chicago to
hmm.
be with my partner. And so I'm teaching part-time at a university here, their intro to anthropology classes. So that's been really fun. And I kind of started on the grad school academia track because I wanted to teach at the college level. So it's been really exciting to get to do that. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping at some point I can kind of do more work to bring adoption studies stuff into the courses I'm already teaching. But
Ooh.
right now it's like very basic intro level anthropology
Right,
classes. So
right,
there's
right.
not a ton of space to get really in depth
Deeper
with
into the
anything, really, but
yeah.
adoption especially. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I remember Intro to Anthropology was a lot of different like terms and stuff to
Yeah. We're like
describe the human being.
ethnocentrism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a fun class. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been like over 10 years since I took it, but it was interesting.
Exactly. Yep. That's kind of my approach with teaching it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't expect my students to walk away saying, this changed my life. If they do, great, but I don't need an oh Captain, my Captain moment
Type of
for
yeah, yeah.
your intro to anthro class.
You were in Michigan and then you moved back to Chicago.
But I moved to Chicago, but I grew up in Twin Cities in Minnesota.
Oh, Twin Cities. Okay.
Yeah.
Why
So
why is
lots
it
of
called Twin
adoptees there.
Cities? Do you know?
So there's Minneapolis and St. Paul are the two major cities in Minnesota, and they're right next to each other. They're just divided by,
Oh.
for the most part, by a river, the Mississippi River. So they're right next to each other. St. Paul's the capital. Minneapolis is a little bit bigger, I think, and so
Mm.
yeah, they're twins.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard it. I don't think I've heard it called that too often, but when people do, I've been meaning us like, why is it called
yeah,
that?
yeah. That's it.
Yeah, because I come from an area that's, I mean, Maryland is a tiny state, so
Yeah,
it's just slightly bigger than Delaware. Delaware is a part of like Maryland almost, just the way it's shaped. But like, what?
I just like I
It's not big enough for that.
all I know about Delaware is like tax haven or something like that,
Hmm.
or
No sales tax. That's a
Yeah,
real
I
big one.
guess Biden's from there, isn't he?
Oh, yes, that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So, but Maryland at least has Baltimore.
We got Baltimore, home of the Ravens and Edgar
Oh
Allan
yeah.
Poe. That's what we're known for.
Oh, I didn't know. So is that why the Ravens are called the Ravens?
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
I never would have associated a sports team with,
Right? I guess, was that literature? It's literature,
yeah,
right? Edgar Allan Poe,
literature,
right?
poetry. I don't know.
Right. I guess Edgar Allan Poe actually has some roots in New York as well, which I didn't know until recently. So
I
he's been
know
around on the
like
East
nothing
Coast,
about him. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I
I did
only
not
knew
pay
it
attention in English.
exactly. Oh, I think in English class they emphasized a whole part or chapter about Edgar Allan Poe just because he's like Maryland, like
Oh my
Raven,
God.
and what that poem about ravens.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's how I know that. Yeah. But so you were adopted, and you grew up in Minnesota.
Yes.
Gotcha. Are
Yeah.
you the only adoptee in your family, or do you have other adoptees in your
I am
family?
not. I am, so I have a younger sister who's 4 years younger than me, and she was adopted from China as well, but from a different, same province, but different city.
Oh, sure,
Um,
yeah.
I'm not really sure if they intentionally went to the same province or not,
Mm.
but yeah, it just kind of happened to be that way. And then my, this is a bit of a stretch, but it's like my cousins on like their dad's side, so not the side that, so our moms are sisters. Their
Hmm.
dad's sister has two kids that are adopted. One is adopted from China as well, and then the other one is a domestic, I believe he's a white adoptee. I don't know them super well. Always know about them. And then we have some extended family in Iowa. And I have a vague memory of going to a family reunion probably 20 years ago now. And one of them had a Korean adoptee son. So
Oh,
there
okay.
is, yeah. And I guess I'm assuming he's a Korean adoptee. I don't know for sure. I just thought he looked Korean.
Right.
And like as a kid, I had always thought, okay, the boy adoptees are Korean
Sure.
because in my head it was only girls that were adopted from China, which I know now was not the case at all. But yeah. So an Asian adoptee son, I should probably say. Um, and they were in like really small town Iowa. And so I can't imagine what that would have been like to grow up. The
Hmm.
rest of us were in like the Twin Cities or the metro area. So,
Sure.
um, yeah. And Minnesota has a zillion adoptees. So,
Big
um,
population there too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I have heard
Um,
that.
yeah. I didn't know that until I started doing adoption research. I guess when I have talked to other adoptees, like they'll share stories about how being adopted was weird for them or they didn't really know about adoption. And I definitely had some, like, I got the questions like, why didn't your parents want you? Like, I still got
Hmm.
insensitive questions, but I was not unique for being adopted by any means. There were
Sure.
several other Asian adoptees at my school, at my parents' church. Being adopted from Asia and being in a white family was usually something that was pretty legible to other people in
I
Minnesota,
see.
which I now understand to be a little bit unique compared to other
Hmm.
adoptees. Being
Oh,
Asian wasn't, though.
yeah.
That they didn't understand. Um, my mom jokes that a lot of people in Minnesota now don't really understand how you can be Korean and not adopted. Like she'll say, like,
Ah.
my partner's non-adopted Korean, and she'll like, I don't know, tell her friends about him or something. And they're like, you mean his parents are Korean too?
Oh, yeah.
Because all the Koreans they know are adoptees.
Right.
So I think
Yeah.
that's always been very funny.
Yeah.
Sad, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because we grew up around the same time, like the same similar background probably growing up. But yeah, same
Yeah.
thing. I also wasn't aware that like, oh, there's kids adopted from other places and
Yeah.
there's kids adopted here too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the domestic adoption thing. I
mm-hmm.
like, and I didn't really like see myself reflected in those kind of adoption story, like Harry Potter is an
Oh, right.
adoptee,
Yes.
or like even I loved the book Anne of Green Gables. I
Sure.
didn't recognize her as an adoptee though.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
entire child, it wasn't until like probably embarrassingly late in life that I think I just heard her at a conference, like someone
Hmm.
referenced her as an adoptee story, and I'm sitting back trying to be all professional in my blazer or whatever, just being like, dang, that's crazy. She is an adoptee. Like,
Yeah.
had no idea. Yeah.
Well, we weren't calling it, they weren't saying adopted or adoptee at that
No,
time. I think they were
no.
just
She
like
was an
orphan.
orphan
Yeah.
waif.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think we only understood or heard those references in the terms of like orphan. It's like Orphan
Yeah.
Annie. Anne of Green
Yeah.
Gables is an orphan and like they
And they
weren't,
were
I
all
mean,
ginger. Pippi Longstocking too.
yeah, I don't I guess that kind of goes with the
Hmm.
whole sentiment of the time.
Yeah.
But like, oh, okay. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was like we didn't talk about it in the terms of like, oh yeah, orphan. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I think most of us were orphans. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
adoptees who also were fostered, but I was like, I think that's
Yeah.
still like orphan, right?
Yeah.
Even if you were fostered by another
Yeah.
family.
But yeah,
Um,
but definitely not in the sense of like we were social orphans, but a lot of us had living parents probably.
yeah,
Whereas like
a lot.
the, for lack of a better word, the ginger adoptees of our
Usually had
storybooks
like
and stuff,
a
their parents
yeah.
were all dead. They were kind of Disney orphans.
Yes.
Um, yeah.
That there's that whole thing with Disney too, where there's usually like one parent is no longer living
Yeah.
or something like that.
And like my sister and I remember an old babysitter of us once recalled that when we were kids, we would always play make believe. And in the make believe game, we were always orphans in it. Like we didn't
Mm,
have any parents. And I think kids often get rid of the parents in
hmm.
their make believe stories and in book and like fictional books and stuff because you can't get away with most of the fun adventure stuff
That you want to
that happens
do.
in a book if
Mm.
parents are around. So it's a good narrative tool, probably. Yeah, we would always apparently play make believe that we were orphans,
But
which
yeah,
is
no, that
weird.
makes sense actually.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about that too closely, but yes, I feel like I can empathize or some empathize there.
Yeah,
Like I'm sure I did
yeah.
that too as a kid. I don't remember, but
Right.
yeah, because yeah, our parents are the ones who usually set boundaries and
Right. Or like,
like
no, you can't climb the magic tree house to
right.
get teleported into, I don't know. I only read like three of those ones, but
Yeah, the Magic Tree House books. Those are
yeah.
it's like that, the Babysitter's Club, and Boxcar
Yeah. I
Children. Is that
loved
what
the
those are?
Boxcar Children.
Okay.
Yeah. I read
Series of
like
Unfortunate
70.
Events, Orphan.
Also Orphan, loved those books as well.
Yeah, I really like
Uh,
those books too. Wow, now I'm like having a whole new perspective of like all the stories I really did enjoy. A lot of them were orphans.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe I just empathize with those characters.
I think they were sold to us a lot too, the orphan story.
It's true. Is
But
Narnia
yeah,
orphan too?
no,
Okay.
that's World War II, so they were sent out to the country
Okay.
when the Germans were bombing London.
Oh yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I don't remember
Yeah,
that
and
part of
like
that story at all.
I loved like all of those fantasy books. I read them constantly. So maybe I remember a little too well. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I think people might listen to that and they're like, "Oh, I don't remember that part of that story." It's like I don't either. Didn't they just like open a wardrobe and they went to some
Yeah,
other
and they just kind of
world?
appeared there. It was
Yeah.
really cold.
I was like, "Oh, there must have been a whole preface that I don't remember reading."
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, even books I've read probably 2 years ago. I'm like, "Oh, I did read that book." We're totally going on tangents, but it was a good book. I enjoyed it. I think
Yeah.
the author's name is Ruth Reichel. I think that's
Uh,
I don't know how to say the last name,
Yeah.
but she actually was a chef and became a food critic
Oh,
and then
cool.
became I think like the editor in chief or something of like Culinary Magazine, and then that got shot down. And now she's two books out there, like fiction stories, but they're very like
Oh,
food focused. So she has two, but one of them was something called like something delicious. I think I should look this
okay.
up as I'm talking about it. But and then the most recent one I read was like Paris, a novel where the main character goes to Paris and actually, her mom passes away. That's not a spoiler, but her mom passes away. But she's an adult, so I guess she's not an orphan anymore.
Yeah.
But her mom
But
passed away.
still
She goes to
dead parent.
Paris. Yeah,
Yeah.
dead parent. Anyway, I read the Delicious storybook probably like 2 years ago, and I was looking back at the library loans. It's like you read this 2 years ago because I'm about to get it again.
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
like,
and you're
I
like,
don't
oh,
remember.
well, that's
I
me
read
with
that one.
movies. I
You
can't
do have
remember
movies?
anything. Yeah, I'll watch a movie and someone's like, oh, this part, or reference it later. I'm like, I have no idea. So now I just kind of look like a poser whenever I'm like, oh yeah, I totally saw that movie. And then I don't know any of the references and it looks like I'm BSing everyone.
Right.
So that's great.
I mean, seeing parts of movies too, that feel like I've seen the whole thing, right? So
Exactly.
that's
It's
why I
like
was
you
like,
watch like reels and like the clips of the movie come
hmm
up and I'm like, well, I've seen 10 of them, so close
I've seen the
enough.
movie.
Yeah.
But wow, that's really interesting that you and your sister would play make believe. It's like, yep, we're orphans.
Yeah.
And then you realize later, oh, like, it's pretty true, actually. Yeah. So then you did your undergrad, not focusing on adoption.
No, yeah.
And then, yeah, because you went straight into going into your PhD studies, which I agree, that is some serious gumption because that's not an
Yeah,
easy
yeah.
feat. But how did you decide you wanted to focus more on adoption too? I'm assuming like you yourself was also like feeling and working through your own relationship with your own adoption too, right?
Yeah. So I think it kind of started on a whim, I'm not gonna lie. Which does not make me sound very serious about my work, but I was doing like other stuff in undergrad. I was majoring in education and also doing like classes on like race and ethnic studies type stuff. And so I got really interested, I was learning, oh, racism is still actually like this really big problem. And I had been raised my whole life to believe that it wasn't. And so that therefore the racist comments that were made to me weren't that big
Mm,
of a deal, right? We're in Minnesota, so it's very don't cause trouble, don't cause conflict. Let's just have
mm.
everyone get along, right? And so college, I'm unlearning a lot of that stuff. And then I decide for like my honors thesis, for one of my majors that I was like, oh, I've learned all this interesting stuff about race and identity, but I don't feel like I'm relating to it the way that my other Asian friends are, or the way that, right, just
Sure.
my other friends of color are relating to this material just because I don't have that sort of ancestral lineage there. I don't have those like social mirrors. And so I decided to write my senior honors thesis on food and Chinese adoptee identity. And so I did like autoethnographic work where I just kind of tracked my own journey with I really like to cook. So trying to cook food from specifically my province, which is the Zhejiang province. I don't know if I'm saying that
Oh
right.
yeah,
But yeah, and cook food from there. And then document like how do I feel about like culture and authenticity. And so that's how I came across Andrea Louie's book, who became my advisor. And I realized that's when I realized, oh, adoption studies is a thing. There's
yeah. Hmm.
actually a ton of research out here on Asian adoption, and this stuff has been coming out for decades. And I read some stuff. I honestly though, like I know some adoptees when they've learned about kind of the adoptee community or had a kind of a moment of like rupture reckoning, it's sort of snowballed for them where they suddenly find like all these books and all this research and all these communities and get
Sure.
really overwhelmed. I feel very fortunate in that that's not really how it happened for me. It kind of just progressed very naturally, and I'm not exactly sure why that it did or didn't happen. I think some of it is that I wasn't really big on social media or using it much. So,
Yeah.
I was reading my books for my research and I was able to sort of self scaffold it. Whereas now, like you can be scrolling on TikTok and suddenly an adoption abolitionist comes up and your entire world is shook just from
Right.
the algorithm recognizing that you're adopted and thinking you might like
Yes.
something, which from talking to other people is a really, I'm understanding now, is another layer of trauma right there.
Hmm.
So I feel very fortunate that I had a pretty structured uh rupture, I guess,
Yeah.
to borrow from the consciousness model. But yeah, and so I did that and realized, oh, all this stuff is here. And I kind of knew I wanted to teach like at the college level too.
Hmm.
And one of my professors in undergrad, was actually a few of them were just really big mentors and kind of encouraging me to pursue a graduate degree. So it was kind of all these little factors, and then realizing, oh, this
Sure.
is something that I did not get to study in undergrad that I think I really
Hmm.
still want to, I have these unanswered questions that I want to explore. And so I went to grad school. Now, is getting a PhD a good way to navigate or kind of unpack your own identity stuff? Absolutely not. It is not good for your
Okay.
mental health, but it was a way for me to sort of compartmentalize the adoption stuff
Sure.
and look at it through a more analytical, intellectual
Mm,
lens. And I think, I guess time will tell uh, in terms of how effective that or how healthy that approach is
right.
for me to intellectualize my feelings and experiences. But, here we are.
Because in a sense, you are able to take it at your own pace, I'm sure. But there's
Yeah.
also like I feel, I mean, I have not done a PhD myself, but I feel like people just are tired at a certain point. You're like, I'm tired of doing this. I'd like to
Yeah.
finish and
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah. I am so ready to be done. My plan is to be done like exactly a year from now to be done
Hmm.
writing and editing and everything and get the heck out of there. Yeah, there's definitely a point where I'm like, okay, so we're adopted and it's complicated and there's a lot of inequality. Boo hoo, who cares? I'm over it.
Sure.
I just want to sleep like a full night and enjoy a full 2-day weekend.
Mm. Hmm.
Um, but then what ends up happening is like I talk to another adopted person and
Sure.
connect. I'm like, right, we're also kind of awesome. And this is a community that I am very committed to. And
Hmm.
so then I go sit back down at my desk and try and write
Sure.
100
Oh
more
yeah.
words at least.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like I definitely can sympathize there, like a little bit of that sentiment of like, oh yeah, talking about adoption and stuff. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And it's like, well, some people are like, it's really good to find some stories about each other somewhere. I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's why I was like, I started this whole thing anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure like you've talked to plenty of people and a lot of our stories they're different but similar.
Yeah, exactly.
Like maybe I shouldn't say this on a podcast, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Like, after the 10th story of, yeah, I grew up in a mostly white area. It was really hard. I didn't have, I knew I was Asian, but I didn't know what that meant. And then I got to college and took a class and
Hmm.
everything changed. It's important, like the fact that we're almost not sick of hearing that story, but that is a
Hmm.
well-trodden story. That's a story that we
Yes.
know. That, I mean, in and of itself is telling us something about our
Right.
community. That is important. But there are definitely moments where hearing it, you're like, yep, wow, that's crazy.
It's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh damn.
Um,
Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's the same thing, different day. Okay, cool, cool.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, but ever so often, so I definitely have heard and learned. I mean, I think I've learned a lot of things, and then I notice in other stories too. But
yeah,
very, I mean, I have not heard one yet where somebody has shared like, yeah, I'm adopted, and my younger sibling's adopted from this other country. Like, I don't hear that too often, so
yeah.
that's always like an interesting sentiment when I hear that. But very often, yes, it is like I'm adopted, and I'm always talking to the older sibling. I haven't reached
Interest.
out or heard from the younger sibling, and I don't know why this is, but and maybe you are
Huh.
covering this in your studies. You can let me know, but
Wait, no, I mean, I'm
it's
like
very
thinking
often,
back. Yeah, I interviewed
yeah,
like 50 people or something. I think most of them were older siblings or on the
right?
older side
Sure.
of, a ton of siblings or something.
Yes. And then they usually have like a younger sibling, but the younger sibling is not as, I guess, like open talking
Into
about
it. Yeah,
adoption
yeah,
or hasn't really connected to their adoption in the same way. And
yeah,
I've just noticed that's very common. And I mean, I don't
yeah,
think I'm not like, I'm not able to like know exactly that everybody has a younger sibling, but when it comes up and it's like, oh, how about your younger sibling? Are they interested in talking about adoption? Do you guys ever? And they're like, nope. I'm like, oh, okay. So, but
yeah.
that's still interesting to me how that happens. It's like, huh, you have a
That's
younger sibling.
super
They're also
interesting.
adopted from China. but they're not in tune or don't want to like talk about their adoption. Maybe that's because they're younger and they haven't like gotten to that age yet where they want to know more, or they're just like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
So,
that's super interesting.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want to like revisit all of my interview notes, which I should anyway.
You probably will have to anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And now do that. But that is a different research question that I
Yes.
can't look at right now because I have to finish this stupid little dissertation.
Because I mean, I do know probably a lot of adoptees or just the generation of adoptees growing up now who are maybe in like middle school, high school, like a lot of them,
Yeah,
there's more of like this idea of like more about privacy. So they're not as like
yeah,
transparent. They're not like posting because we
yeah,
kind of went through that surge of like all of us are posting and really active on social media,
yeah,
like really active even after our age group, right? And then,
yeah,
but like the ones that are now coming of age, it's like they're not, they're more about their privacy. So it's like, this is
yeah.
interesting. So it would be, I mean, I'm probably like another 10 years before asking them, like, so how you feel about your adoption and growing up? Well, it's like, well, I didn't use social media, so I don't really,
Yeah, yeah. Are they younger? Yeah, I guess a lot of them like watch TikToks, but they're not
they're not like posting. Yeah.
posting as much. Yeah. Because I only
Yeah.
interviewed people 18 and over because I wasn't gonna deal with all the
Yeah, there's a lot of like
ethical
the
stuff of like,
minority, yeah,
yeah, I'm not doing that.
minor, minority,
And also I'm
minor.
like, because my interviews were all like over Zoom. I was recruiting through social media. So I was like,
Sure,
I don't like the idea of asking underage children to video chat with me for an
sure.
hour.
Yeah.
A stranger on the internet. Like
Same
I wouldn't
sentiment.
want my kid to do that. I don't have kids, but
Hmm.
my hypothetical child to do that, and I would understand why. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
I feel that too. It's like I would, yeah, if you
yeah,
were over eight, like adult and able to give
yeah,
consent in the US, I don't know if the age of consent can be different in different places, but
yeah,
in the US, yeah, I was like, and then
yeah,
if you didn't want your video or your audio to be shared, like then I can just take it down, no worries. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, when it comes with like those who, yeah, especially like adoptive parents and whatnot, like
yeah.
that is your child. So it's like I don't wanna.
Yeah, although oh, that stuff is so weird because I remember so I'm on 23 and Me. That makes it sound like I'm on LinkedIn, but
For
I'm on
us, it really
23 and
does
Me.
sound like
It
that though.
it is though, yeah. And I had like an adoptive mom reach out to me because
Mm,
I matched with her son, and we
hmm.
are maybe, I don't know, we were like fourth or fifth because like we were about as
Sure,
related as you and I are by blood.
sure.
And she reaches out to me and says, "Hi, I think you are my son's, distant cousin or whatever." And
Hmm.
I didn't respond to her because, a fifth cousin is not going to get me anywhere closer
Right.
to finding biological parents, especially if they're here in the US already. I'm also not super looking for that right now, but like anyway, but I was just thinking like, so you uploaded your, I'm guessing underage child's genetic,
Genetic
like full
DNA.
genetic DNA onto a website that I'm not sure when, she would have used this or
Mm,
uploaded it, but just thinking like on a website that we now know has had multiple security breaches. Like,
sure.
I was early 20s, I think, when I did it. It's like I probably
Hmm.
didn't fully understand the risk I was taking, but I was at a point where I was like, I am willing to kind of assume the likely risks with this,
Yeah,
but and just see what happens and get some information. But
right.
doing that and then reaching out to potential relatives on behalf of your adopted child, it's like talk about violating someone's right to consent.
It sounds like there's like genuine intent there. That was
Yeah.
good, but it's also like, oh, this is really tough. Like that comes into like a gray area of like, does
Yeah,
your
yeah.
son know about this? Have you
Right.
talked about it?
Maybe he can do that when he's 18 if he wants to.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I definitely appreciate like my dad when I was 18, he was like, "Hey, you have the choice now. Like,
Yeah.
don't want to." I think he mentioned it when I was 16 as well,
Yeah.
but he's like this is something you can do, but I would prefer that you wait until like you're older or
Yeah.
like you can think about it now, obviously, but
Yeah.
now that you're 18, like here's this opportunity to like explore more about your background. Like, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Because, like, in addition to relatives, you can find out some kind of scary stuff that I
Sure.
definitely don't know if I would have understood. I mean, I don't understand it now,
Hmm.
because I'm not a geneticist or
Right.
I slept through most of biology, but like, uh, yeah, stuff that maybe like if your kid is like 6 or something,
Hmm.
maybe they're not ready for that.
Yeah. Because there's the health portion too, not just
Yeah,
with
yeah,
23andMe. And I got the kit when it was like a health and
yeah,
genealogy or cult.
something
I
like that.
want to
Yeah,
say
it was
health and
like
culture. I don't know if that's
ethnicity
it.
and like,
Getting the health one thrown in was like, oh, this it can tell you if you're prone to have like diabetes or this all this
yeah,
other serious diseases. And it's like, well, glad I didn't do that when I was younger.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Like that would have just scared me, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. And it's like, oh yeah, you might be prone to because you have the harmless stuff like, oh, you might taste cilantro like soap. Like,
Yep,
okay,
yep.
that's fine. But
They
the ones
think
that are
I
like,
would, but I actually don't. I love cilantro.
so
So
there you
they were
go.
wrong.
They were wrong about that.
Exactly.
But there's definitely more serious stuff too
Yeah, like
that's
one of
like,
mine, like it does say like, oh, slightly increased risk of Alzheimer's. Like at this point,
oh,
I'm old enough to be like, that is what it is,
sure.
and be like, it's slightly. That does not mean I'm going to get
Mm-hmm.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But definitely in my in my youth, I feel like I'm sounding like I'm ancient, but when I was like 16 or something, I was definitely quicker to panic about
Mm-hmm.
things, and that would have kept me up at night.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not information I needed then.
No.
But yeah. And it's
No, no, no.
definitely not information I would have wanted someone else to obtain on my behalf.
Mm-hmm.
That was a weird 23andMe story I have. That's the only weird
Right.
one. The rest is 100% Chinese.
100% Chinese.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Can say most interviews, and if that comes up, it's like 100% Chinese. Like, yeah, 100%
Yeah.
Chinese.
Yep.
Although recently it's been saying like 0.02% Korean, and I'm like, why do you?
Yeah.
Well, you're also from Zhejiang province, which is, of course, a big province, but it is
Yeah.
southern, so maybe
Yeah.
that's why it's like you have a little bit of Korean in
Yeah. Oh, are
you.
you from the same province?
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The city I'm from is like Ningbo, which is like south of Shanghai, but closer to like the water's edge.
Okay. I'm from Yiwu, which is about an hour to south of Hangzhou.
Okay, so I think you're
Yeah.
like more. I think that's
Farther
central,
inland and
central.
stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
central, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So like, I
Um,
I don't even really like take it that seriously. It's like I'm Chinese. It's really not.
yeah, yeah,
I was like
yeah.
Korean.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's I think like just as much overlap as all people from the general region
Sure.
have, where we have like some common ancestor way,
Yeah.
way, way back.
Yeah. And what as you said is
Um,
like, you got like what 40 fifth and sixth cousins on there or something. So it's
exactly.
like, yeah, I don't think much of it until
Yeah, yeah. Until
sure.
like yeah, I think I saw like Nanchang province said something like kind of third is stretching it, but like,
Hmm.
second cousin is gonna actually
Yeah.
be a lead. Stuff further out, probably not.
Yeah.
But
Like,
yeah.
yeah, well,
I apologize if I'm misciting them if it was somebody else, but yeah.
sure. I was like, hopefully nobody will be looking too
Yeah.
closely at yeah, I don't know if anybody would re use this podcast as like research material, but just putting it out there. None of this has been fact checked.
No, yeah.
We're
We're
just
just
citing things that we think we have seen. So,
I saw this thing. I know my partner will sometimes be like, "Oh yeah, did you read about this? Blah blah blah." I'm like, "Where did you read that?" He's like, "Twitter." Like, okay, well, maybe we should look a little closer. There's some good
yeah,
stuff on the internet,
have to do some
do a little digging.
yes, digging and filtering or compartmentalizing as
Yeah,
you
I tell
as
my
you
students, let's put our critical thinking caps on and our
like
media
what?
literacy hats, and just
Yes.
like, if something seems off, just look a little farther. You're
Yeah.
probably just sitting on the couch anyway when you came across this. You probably have the time to dig a little deeper
Yeah, like question it
before you
sometimes.
spew it out to everyone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you mentioned it's like at the moment you're not, of course, you're focused on studies.
Yeah.
But
I'm
do
like
you
trying to
think,
survive.
wait, so have you been back to China? Did you go back to China or do you
Yes,
want to go
yeah.
back?
Yeah, so I've actually I've been really lucky. I've been back twice.
Hmm.
In my life, I went back on like a heritage tour in 2009 with my adoptive
Mm.
mom. My sister was too young to go at that point, but I was 13 years old. Sorry, my sister's born in 2000. I'm 4 years older, so I
Mm.
just count that to figure out how old I was each year. It's very handy. Love my sister for that. I was 13, and we went to, it was like, it was kind of a budget heritage tour, because it was actually a bunch of like doctors and medical personnel that were going to work in the orphanages and do like exams and stuff. Like it's my parents are not, none of us have any medical training. So we just tagged along and
Nice.
basically took notes for everybody. Like we were scribes and that was our job. And like other, like some of the actual doctors there brought their adopted children. One family
Mm.
brought their two biological children. So like it wasn't outrageous that we were non-medical
Sure.
personnel tagging along, but I think it was a bit cheaper. And so we didn't do as much touring as I know other heritage tours tend to do since we
Right.
were, but it was cool because we got to spend more time in the orphanage and kind of see how things were working at that point and like
Hmm.
interact with the kids and stuff, which I think doesn't happen as much on heritage tours where you like do a day there, right? And then you
Hmm.
do other stuff. So that was kind of really cool. I got really bad food poisoning on that trip.
Ooh.
Threw up in the street in the middle of China. Um, so in Lanchi. So that was interesting. But yeah, I remember I don't have a ton of memories of it at this point.
Hmm.
But like we saw my finding site. We met with the orphanage director at the time. He was kind of rude to us.
Mm.
We like wouldn't like he was like weird, I remember, about letting me see my file
No
and stuff.
surprise.
So there's just some weird stuff there, I remember, and stuff. But I know for that trip that I remember like I was 13. So I was kind of like, what do you mean I can't go on Facebook here? I want to like text my friends.
Mm.
Um, I was definitely not in the moment. And I think that trip was a lot more meaningful for my adoptive mother,
Hmm.
who this was her first time coming back to China since they adopted me. Because when they adopted my sister, just my dad went because I was 5 or 4
Sure.
or
So
something.
like
I was too
she
young
had
to
to
really travel
stay.
like that. So she stayed with me. And then my dad went back. So my mom hadn't been back to China since she first became a parent. And so
Mm.
it was really emotional for her, understandably, of like that trip and the places we were in changed everything for her. So she was getting,
Mm.
teary-eyed and stuff, and I just wasn't feeling those things there. And I remember that being very confusing and I think kind of hard for her to see that I
Hmm.
wasn't as
Yeah.
emotional. But I was like, this is just interesting. Like, this is an interesting cultural experience, but I don't think she understood why I wasn't connecting in the same way that
Sure.
she was. Um,
Yeah.
and also, oh, I remember feeling kind of like almost an object that she was observing or something of like, oh, she kept commenting, oh, it's so interesting how people respond to you or act
Hmm.
around you. I'm like, I'm not a zoo animal. I'm just trying to go on my trip. But
Sure.
she does that. I think a lot of adoptive parents do that a lot because a lot of them don't have friends that are people of color or anything like that. So their child, it's like, oh, this is their first time seeing what it looks like to move about the world as a non-white person.
Hmm.
And that's fascinating to them.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was actually just back there this summer. Summer of this
Oh.
year it was in June, and we went to my partner and I. We're there for in China for a week, and then Korea for a week.
Oh,
But we went
nice.
to Xi'an, China, where like the Terracotta Army is and stuff.
Yeah.
Mostly because we really like the food and the noodles from that region.
Sure.
And so, I mean, I wrote my senior thesis I wrote like 40 pages on food. So
Right.
naturally, I would fly to the other side of the world to get a
To
bowl of
try. Yeah.
noodles. And I did that. And it was awesome. It was super fun. It was like we did some tour, like some guided tour stuff, like one day and then self-guided. And that was really fun to just kind of move
Mm.
at our own pace. I probably moved us a little too fast. And then we took a bullet train back down to Hangzhou, and then I saw my orphanage again.
Oh,
this year. And that was interesting because it's in a new building. It's been 10 years. It's no secret how fast China is developing. So
sure.
nothing really looked the same to me. And to be honest, I also don't really remember a lot of what things looked like
Yeah.
in 2009, but everything looked different. The orphanage was obviously different. It's under a new director. I also didn't really have very, you know,
Hmm.
emotional ties to it. It was kind of underwhelming, to be honest. There aren't really
Yeah,
many kids
I
there
see.
anymore. It was mostly like people with different disabilities and stuff like that that were
Sure.
when I asked the orphanage director, like she was saying that they'll probably live there for the rest of their lives. It's not
Oh,
like it's the same thing as like a facility here would be. People who their families can't take care of them at home or support them at home, so they live there and then they get visited and stuff. So it was weird
mm,
though because it's this huge facility, and I think they said they only had like I think less than 30 people staying there, but it looks
no,
like it could have accommodated over twice that many residents. So I'm
sure.
not sure. We were also there on like a non-work day right before a holiday. So
Hmm.
I don't know if that would have like if people were home for the
Right,
weekend or whatever. Um,
right. Like, are
but
these kids
yeah,
maybe fostered potentially?
yeah, maybe.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think more kids are fostered, more kids are obviously not being separated from their parents, period. And then uh there's a lot more adoption within China
Yeah.
happening now, which is great.
Yeah, because you
Um
went recently, so it's like that
yeah,
things have
it
changed. I
was
mean,
like 2 months before China ended its adoptions.
yeah,
And I had
that's
like there was no they didn't say anything about it
right,
to me there, obviously. So I had no idea that it was just as much a shock to me in September when it was as it was to the rest
right.
of us. So that was interesting, but kind of an underwhelming visit to the orphanage. And like my
Mm.
finding site used to be this kind of old architecture, like a little, it's a neighborhood, but
Yeah.
my American brain would have jumped to the word village when I
Hmm.
saw it. Like just again, old kind of quaint architecture. That's been bulldozed now. It's a field, and they're
Oh,
building a high-speed rail over there. So very China.
yeah.
Yeah. And so like the only thing is on the wall of the orphanage, there's like a photo. It's weird. It's like pretty much like a success poll of like all the kids, all the people that were adopted internationally are up on
Whoa.
this wall. And so there is a picture of me and like
Hmm.
the girls that I was adopted with on that wall. I saw
Mm.
my baby picture there. And then my file is pretty much empty now because actually I have most of that paperwork.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay, so you have
they
like the
handed it over
original.
to my
Yeah.
parents when they adopted me. And so I have most of
Mm.
the original copies. So there's just like a couple little medical intake reports
Sure.
and a photo of me that my adoptive mom sent them when I was about 2 years old. So there's a
Mm.
photo of me with like my mom's handwriting on it, which is kind of cool. So it was cool to have these like two pieces, I guess, of
Sure.
evidence of like, this is what I have to say here. I was here at one point. I'm
Yeah.
from China. I was here. I don't know if I was expecting some kind of answer or anything there, right? Like we
Who know,
never know what
right?
to expect when we go in there.
Exactly.
So it was underwhelming, but they served us lunch and the food was really good.
Oh.
Like, dang, if this is what orphanage food is like,
Wow, and you did all this with just your
imagine.
partner? Like you didn't go with your most recently, it was just with
No.
your partner. No?
Yeah, just with my partner on this trip. And I don't know if they've gotten many people that come with A as adults,
Yeah.
B without their adoptive
Adoptive. Yeah,
parents.
that's exactly
Like,
what I was gonna
yeah,
say.
all of our paperwork for like the tour, like we went through an agency to like we just did like a 4-day tour in Hangzhou and to the orphanage, and it was all like you and your child. I'm like, am I the child or is my partner the child in
Right?
this scenario? Like, which one of us is the child? But it
Your
was
partner's
so
probably
funny.
like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So I take
Um,
your partner's probably the same, around the same age. It's not
yes,
like
yes, yes, yes. My partner is not a child, to be clear.
right. And neither are you. So.
Exactly. I was like, if anyone's listening,
Yeah, just to be clear, partners, same
Is an
age.
adult, a consenting adult.
Because I know, right? This is an episode about consent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is your partner somebody you met while at school, at university?
Yeah, in undergrad.
In
So
undergrad.
we
Okay.
became friends in undergrad and then started dating year or two after we graduated. Yeah.
And then, because
Um,
you said you moved to Chicago because
and
that
then
is where your partner lives.
yeah.
Wow.
And more teaching jobs out here too than in Michigan. So
Oh,
yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. It probably would have been about equal in terms of like availability because I have more connections in Michigan, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, but it's fun to live in Chicago and it's a little bit it's more in between like Michigan, Lansing, Michigan, where I lived, and my folks in Minneapolis. So, um,
Mm,
whereas like when I would drive from Michigan to Minneapolis, it was like 10, 12 hours,
yeah.
longer than I ever really felt like driving alone. Can do to Minneapolis in 6.5 hours, and then Lansing's like 4 hours away. So
Oh, so you kind of like a pretty good distance.
yeah,
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 if you
yeah.
want to.
It's honestly, and I've got like family in Madison, Wisconsin. So like honestly, Chicago's a great place to be
Yeah.
living right now for just like where I'm at in my life in this season or
In the season,
whatever
yes.
season of my life.
Yes. Now, is your partner, like I have to ask 'cause I'm curious, but is your partner
Yeah.
also like Asian descent or
Yes, yeah. So he's Korean American, but like as
oh yeah, yeah.
we adoptees say Korean.
Korean, yes. It's like, are you
Um,
Korean, Korean?
yeah. Yeah. And so that's been really, I say, sorry, in Minnesota, we use the word interesting for everything,
Sure.
and the word has no meaning anymore.
Mm,
So I was gonna say it's been interesting, like we've been together 4 years now, so like
hmm
getting to know his family and stuff like that. Like his mom
hmm
only recently stopped giving me a fork with dinner
Wow.
every time because she was trying very hard, I think, to show like I understand that,
You've been American.
this one's not like the other ones. Um,
Oh my gosh.
but yeah.
That's okay. Oh yeah, because you said you went to Korea too, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So we saw some of his family, and I'll definitely admit I was a little jealous there, like, oh, so because people kept asking, like
hmm
in China, they all knew, or in China or Korea, people would ask if they didn't know I was adopted, they'd be like, oh, are you visiting family? And I'd be like,
mm
nope,
Nope.
nope. But then he
Just
has like all these like aunts and uncles that look like him. I was
sure.
like, must be nice.
Yeah. It's like must be
Yeah.
nice that you I take it probably
Cool.
speaks the language of
Not much, not
oh,
much.
okay.
So that's something that's nice. Although, so it was very funny us going through China and Korea. Like, thank God for Google Translate. That's all I'll
Sure.
say. Like, we did not have that in 2009. So,
Nope.
like, China, especially in Xi'an, like, not many people spoke English.
hmm
And so we stayed at an American, like a Sheraton hotel. I thought,
Sure.
like, oh, well, it's more likely they'll have international clients. And so like the help desk would speak more English. So that was my
Yeah.
thought process. And it was also a safe bet that they would take foreigners because not all hotels in
Yeah.
China will take foreigners. So I was like, I'm a genius. No, they didn't
No.
really speak much English.
No.
And so we would type everything we needed in Google Translate, show them, and they would like
Like talking
say
to the
back.
phone and you'd be
Yeah,
able, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And it was really useful. It's not something I had ever done before.
hmm
But like we would have been screwed without it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I was very grateful for that. And
Mm.
because I can be like, I can I can ask some basic questions of like, where is the bathroom?
Right. The
Or
essential things.
that stuff, but I can't understand the response. So
Sure.
it's kind of useless. So that was very fun. So yeah, we were like trying to get by in China with that, and then Korea, trying to rely on like Google Translate again, and then his limited Korean and the little bits I've picked up. I can
hmm
mostly just say like, "Oh, sorry, excuse me, sorry," when I'm moving
hmm
through the crowd. And by the time we got on the plane back to the States, our brains were so scrambled from trying to figure out Chinese and Korean and not being able to
Right.
speak either of them that we could barely speak English on the
hmm
plane ride back. We were just like,
It's like,
and there was a couple behind us fighting the entire 14-hour flight in Korean. I don't know what was going on. They were at it
For
though,
the
the
whole flight.
whole flight. There would be pauses where they just like wouldn't like look at each other or talk, and then they go at it again. And it was so
14
bad.
hours.
Yeah. And then I see like in the immigration line, it looked like they'd kind of hit pause or something.
Yikes.
I wish them well.
Yeah, that's for a whole 14 hours to fight is
That's like a really long fight. I've never fought for that long.
no. No, I feel like the longest fight I've had with my partner might be like, I don't know, like 2 hours, and then
Yeah,
like was
right?
upset for a day but couldn't finish the discussion until like 2 days later.
No, exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like, dang, I just switch seats with someone at that point. Like, I feel like if you can't get it sorted out in 14 hours, then
Right?
I'm no marriage therapist, but they definitely could have used one.
Oh my gosh.
And
Plus,
the thing is since I don't speak or understand Korean, I didn't even get to know what they
like
were saying.
enjoy the tea. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
That would be my part. I'd be like, oh, it'd be
Yeah,
nice to like know what was happening there.
exactly. So there was nothing. Like I had my own live K drama right behind me,
Right?
but no subtitles.
That's
Just
actually
kidding, they're
really,
people.
they are,
And
but
I'm
I
sure it was a very
mean,
difficult flight for them as well.
yeah. Anybody around them, I'm sure it was like of everybody else
Oh, I
had to
know.
be
I should
like,
have just asked someone like,
do you know
can you
what's
translate? Yeah.
happening? Yeah. It's like, come on. My
Yeah.
gosh, that's such a long time to have an argument with somebody.
Yeah, those flights are awful.
Because you also want to sleep.
Yeah, and I'm terrible at sleeping on planes. Like
Oh,
I had like my anti-anxiety meds. I had like a Benadryl. I was
oh my
doped up
goodness.
and I still barely slept.
You did not knock out.
Yeah.
I definitely take for granted my ability to like sleep at any time.
Oh,
That's what I did
enjoy
before.
that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm enjoying it. Like before we got on, I was like, I'm taking a nap. Hour, I was
Yeah.
out, and I woke up on
Oh,
my own. I was like, this is really good that I can do this.
yeah.
Like, take it for granted.
I just need to
Wow,
get a good neck pillow.
that would help.
Yeah. Like a really nice. I don't know. I just don't want to get scammed by like the trendy neck pillows.
Yeah, there's all different. Yeah, I don't know.
All the ones that they're like, this will be the most ergonomic, but like I need something more than the whatever they sell at the airport.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like something else. I guess that's what TikTok's for. I
Yeah.
personally do not use TikTok at all. I think that's like a
Yeah.
good thing
Yeah.
because you're right. You mentioned it earlier, but I imagine like you could be on TikTok looking at something very like like the whole DNA conversation. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, cilantro taste. But then like something else could appear and it would be like one person speaking about adoption and then going like into like the very nitty-gritty conspiracy
Yeah.
theories and you're like, oh, I didn't sign up for that. Like that's how I
Yeah. I
feel
was not
TikTok
ready
would
for
happen.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was like, nope, we're
Yeah.
not doing it.
Because I've used it mostly for like, since I look at social media and stuff, I'll scroll on that. So my
Oh,
TikTok
right.
is obviously designed for adoption stuff
Yeah.
specifically. So, and I keep it pretty discreet so that like I only go on it when I want to. And quite frankly, like,
Right.
I don't go on it much because the platform overwhelms me, how the videos just start right away.
Yes.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I like
That is a one.
Instagram Reels where I can choose when I'm
Control.
gonna, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Instagram for life here.
yeah, I love Instagram, yeah. And I like Facebook. I know people aren't supposed to like face or like,
hmm
the youngins aren't on Facebook anymore. My
Youngins.
students are always like, yeah, we don't have a Facebook.
I mean, if
I'm
we
like,
were to mention MySpace, they would just be like, wait, what
yeah,
is that?
exactly. I was not allowed to have a MySpace, but I really wanted one.
So that's how I got free music for a while.
Oh, I did the YouTube to MP3.
I did that too, but I think
And
like before that, you could do MySpace and you could just
yeah.
download the
And you
YouTube to
had like
MP3.
there was like a little like here's what I'm listening to right now thing. I feel
hmm
like, yeah, God, MySpace was always like, that's what I'll have when I'm really cool.
Yeah.
And then I never
Yeah.
got really cool.
Oh, MySpace. That's a
Good time.
throwback.
Yeah.
Because what was before MySpace? Friendster? No, I don't know.
So
Um,
maybe, I don't know. Now we're getting too
I'm gonna
far
try.
before my time. Yeah.
Right, it's before, yeah, this is before
Yeah.
my time. Well, that was really fascinating to hear about how you went back
Yeah,
twice and you
yeah.
did go back to your orphanage. So that's
Yeah, it was definitely weird going back. I think, I'm done with the orphanage visits now.
yeah.
It was a good closure, I think, to be like, nope, this is
Hmm.
really, unless I were to actually commit to a birth parent search,
Search.
which I don't know, if it was, it's something I'd like to do, but there's so much logistics and all of that stuff. I don't know if I'll ever get around to it.
Yeah.
If it was more accessible, maybe, but unless I actually was going to do that, I think I've kind of found all of the biographical information I'm ever going to find about myself
Mhm.
in China without having
Sure.
relatives or something there. But
Yeah.
I would still definitely go back and visit more of China in a
Hmm.
heartbeat. Um,
They got good food in many places.
they got good food, although I did not like the food from our province. I'm not gonna lie. That was part of what I talked about in the thesis. Like, this sucks.
Mm.
It's like all soy sauce.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you went to Xi'an, which,
Yeah.
I mean, especially, I mean, I know in New York, but like there's so many Xi'an famous foods.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was like, there's a reason that it's called Xi'an famous foods.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's like everywhere we went, it was just delicious. Like
Hmm.
everything. And they have this big Muslim quarter.
Yeah.
And all the food there was good. Although I'm not a big lamb person, but like, because a lot of the stuff was lamb based, but oh my God, I miss it. I would go
Okay.
back in a heartbeat.
Oh, that book I was looking for by Ruth Reichel.
Yeah.
It's called Delicious. I think you would
Oh,
probably enjoy it now that we're talking about food
just called
and like
delicious. Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Delicious by Ruth Reichel. You
Michael.
might actually enjoy
Cool.
it if you need
I'll
a
look it
break
up.
from doing your studies and
I
stuff.
always need a break from doing my studies. Yeah. It's like
Um,
I'll do like intense research and then like read like high fantasy or something like
yeah.
that.
Oh, you
And
said high fantasy, yeah. But I don't
yeah,
think this is I guess it's a little bit more realistic, but it's not
that's fine too. Just anything like light and
definitely
like
light.
my friends will be like, I'm reading this collection of essays by like, I don't know, someone smart. And I'm like, yeah, maybe at some point in my life I will read heavy, important stuff because obviously there's plenty of value in that, but I do a little
Sure.
too much of that right now.
Yeah, you need a break.
Um, so I'm gonna read fun, stupid stuff or
Yeah.
not stupid stuff, but fun stuff.
Like more like I mean, I've recently have gotten into reading like young adult like Chinese American stories.
Love it. Yes.
So whenever I'm in a bookstore, which because there's so many here in New York and there's a lot of
Yeah.
independent
Are you
ones.
in the city?
Yes, I'm in
Oh, cool.
Queens, but
Oh,
I'm
nice, nice.
like I'm going I mean in Queens itself and Brooklyn, of
Yeah.
course. There's a lot of independent bookstores, but in
Yeah,
Manhattan,
yeah.
so like whenever I'm walking by a bookstore, I'll tend to go in, I'll look at like the titles. So that's how I'm
Yeah.
finding all these books. So like
Yeah.
I read one recently about somebody like in Chinatown. I was like, "Oh, this is relatable because you have all
Yeah.
the sites in Chinatown."
Yeah. Oh my
So those are
God.
nice little breaks.
I was in New York City last December, actually, also about a year ago.
Mm.
And yeah, I'd always wanted to see like a Christmas in New York type of thing, and I've
Oh
got some
yeah.
friends out there. So it was super fun, although I made the mistake of staying in, I think it was Murray Hill, like just below Midtown.
Oh, there's
And
not too close to any trains.
yeah, there was that. So I was busing everywhere, which is fine. But
Sure.
really it was that everything closes early there. It's like
Yeah.
the one neighborhood where it's not up all night. So I was hungry at like 11. I was like, oh, I'll just find a slice of pizza. Like, come on, it's New
Hmm.
York. There was nothing. I
Yeah.
would have had to have like gotten on a bus to get
To get, yeah, a slice
pizza
somewhere.
at 11. And so I was very upset about that. And I will be writing a letter to Mayor Adams
Oh my
promptly.
goodness.
Yeah.
That's
But
like a post-pandemic thing I heard. People
yeah.
were saying like things aren't open as early too.
Oh
So it used to
yeah.
be
So it's
things
like,
be open earlier too, but now it's like
yeah,
things
the
are
city
not, yeah.
sleeps now. The
Yeah, it
city does
actually,
sleep.
yeah.
And so yeah, I just remember like I think I just grabbed like some like a bag of like cashews or something from the convenience store and had
Oh
to eat
yeah,
that.
the bodega right there.
Yeah, because I was getting
That's
hangry. And so
yeah, because the where they make sandwiches sometimes that closes early too. So
yeah, yeah.
it's like, oh,
So
yeah.
I was very upset about that. But
So much for that New York thing where
yeah,
everything's open.
but I
Yeah.
did really like the New York Chinatown.
Yeah, near Chinatown. And the holidays is it is nice to see here.
It was, yeah, I was like, man, I really want to hate on this and be too cool for it, but boy, it's real pretty and
Yeah.
charming, and the city's very romantic when it's lit up.
And then
Yeah.
you got to see the Saks Fifth Avenue show for the last time. So
Is it not?
it is not returning. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know it was a thing, to be honest.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was
Yeah.
walking, so I went to like, I wanted to go see what the big deal was with the Christmas tree.
Of course.
And I was like, wow, that is a big tree.
Yes.
Um, and then like we're walking around and I saw the light show. I was like, oh, that's cool. So we stood and watched it, and I
Yeah.
looked it up later and
It's like
was
it's
like,
a
oh, this
thing.
is like a big deal.
Not anymore. 2024 there. I mean, ironically, it's also their 100th anniversary, but they are not doing it because it's like the cost and everything was too much.
That
Because
makes, well, they shut down the street for it too.
they shut down the street at some points, yes.
Yeah.
And then it was just also they have it running so much that
Yeah.
it's just like the cost to run that was a lot and
I can
it's Saks.
imagine.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Um
Yeah. And you know, if Saks can't afford it, then it's
yeah,
gotta
I
be
mean
expensive.
I was like, it's like, well, I mean, like Macy's is, there's not many Macy's left, but because they are
Yeah.
like the parade, they got it. But
Yeah.
they have a lot of other businesses that are like a part of underneath Macy's, like in the
Yeah.
flagship store, which I think is why
Yeah.
they can keep it going.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I've never like on TV or anything ever watched the Thanksgiving Day parade. I didn't really
Yeah.
know that was a thing until college, actually.
Oh, that's
We're
so
not really
funny.
thanks like my family doesn't really celebrate Thanksgiving, so I don't know much about like the like
Oh,
we would like
really?
eat turkey and like go to my grandparents, but
Yeah.
like like my parents this year I think they just went out to dinner with my sister,
Hey,
who still lives in the Twin Cities. Yeah, so they're not like
it's like,
mm, they're not I love holidays. Like
hmm
I'm not religious, but I love Christmas,
Yeah.
in all its commercial glory. But the rest of my family, they're not holiday people at all. They think I'm
Oh,
crazy. Yeah.
okay.
They
Wow,
like
so
they
you're the
don't
most
care.
spirit. Wow.
I'm very festive. Yeah, I mean like I'm wearing red.
Yeah.
Um, but
That's
yeah,
funny.
yeah, they don't
Yeah.
really care for it. So
I mean, my mom grew up in New York, so she's definitely familiar with all the traditions. And
oh, okay.
I did see the parade this year for the first time in
Oh,
person.
oh,
And I saw it towards the beginning of where it starts, because what they have on TV is where they like do the performances and have all the fanfare, whatever.
oh yeah. I guess
So
you wouldn't.
I saw it not near there at all,
Yeah,
and it was quick. And I was like, this is great. I would do this
yeah,
again because it's so quick. Because you see all
yeah,
the balloons and the people marching.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, this was worth it.
Because it's like blow up things, right?
Yeah, the big balloons.
Or something. Yeah.
But they all
I,
just walk by, but in like Herald Square is where they do all the performances. So that's
okay.
why it takes so much longer when you watch it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Down
whoa,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
Now that I know about this, maybe I'd come back and see it. It was cool. I think it was one of those like
Is it
one,
on Thanksgiving Day that they do it?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it starts at like 8 a.m. Eastern time,
Okay.
and the
Yeah.
televised programming goes for 3 hours. Yeah, I think the parade itself, where I was, it started at 8 a.m. and I think
Yeah.
you saw Santa by like 10 a.m.
Oh, Santa's there too.
Yeah, it ends with like Santa coming through, like, okay, it's the holidays now.
I see.
That's how they do it. I'm like,
Come to Macy's.
come to Macy's. Yep.
Yeah. I did drag my partner to Macy's for the holidays just to see the window displays, and he had no idea. He didn't know that
Yeah.
that was a thing.
Oh,
And
it's
so
a
he was like,
thing.
why the hell are you making me go to Like, we're in New York City
Right.
and you're making me go
You
to a
go to
Macy's.
Macy's.
And I kept telling him, no, it's a famous
It's a
Macy's. He's like, what are you
thing.
talking about? And then,
Yeah.
I mean, I was right. It was very pretty.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Their window displays, the ones at Saks. So they do have the window
Oh, yeah.
displays, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But the big like light show thing. I mean,
Yeah.
what they did, honestly, I remember just thinking, I was like, this is over the top.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I love the holidays and I love extravagant whatever, but I was like, this
Yeah.
is too much even for me. Like if I'm staying calm,
It's a lot.
yeah, it was a little bit much. I think I'm
Yeah.
ready to go home now.
This is all a shameless plug for the holiday season
Yeah,
in New
I'm like,
York
I think I'm ready to go
City.
back to the Midwest now.
It's so that's the nice thing about not living in Manhattan because I'm in
Yeah.
Queens. So I was like,
Oh my
okay, I'm
God,
in
I could
Queens,
never live
and
in Manhattan.
it's yeah, it's overwhelming. I don't
Yeah.
know.
most of my friends are in Brooklyn, so
Yeah,
yeah.
it's nice to like get away from the city center, but yeah, it's like holiday
Yeah.
season, here we are. And I do holiday tours as a part of
Oh,
like one of my
like
gigs is
you guide?
I guide. Yeah, I'm a tour guide. So it's like I take
Cool.
people through all this. And I was like, yeah, so I
So
have
next
to.
time I'm in New York for the
There
holidays,
you go.
I'll call you up and we'll
Yeah, we can
get
do the walking version. I'll tell you
you'll
all about Home
walk like an East
Alone.
Coaster and walk. Oh yeah, wait, Home Alone though is oh, but they have the second one in New
Yes,
York.
yes, the
So I was
Home
like,
Alone
oh hey,
2.
Home Alone is ours. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Home Alone
Chicago.
2, okay?
Yeah, yes, Lost in New York. That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
But
they
yes,
made
the
more of
original Home
them.
Alone, yes, that's yours.
That's ours.
Yeah.
They call
Uh,
Chicago the third coast.
right?
It's really sad. I'm like,
Man.
guys, it's not a coast.
No, it's not. It's landlocked, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have
100%
like
land.
the lake, the Great Lakes, but
Mm,
none of the people on the coast know what the Great Lakes are or care. They're very cool and you should still see them and respect them. But
it's because we're next to the Pacific and Atlantic, so
yeah,
we're like, well,
eh,
okay.
yeah.
It's like, whatever. But well, let's we could wrap it up too because we're actually ending. It's about the time I end too. But is there anything else you'd like to hear from other adoptees or anything else you'd like to share? Although it seems like with your research, you've heard from a lot of adoptees.
I have. And yeah, I feel like I've blabbed at you for a while, but so I appreciate you putting up with me. But I think just like from other adoptees, I think this isn't original or anything, but just a lot more community care and I think acceptance of, I mean, okay, this is me also being like, this is what I'm finding in my research, but kind of
Mm,
acceptance or recognition that, just because we're both adopted or something doesn't mean we're going to become best friends instantly.
sure.
It might happen and that's great. But I think leaving space for the shared adoptee experience or something to be something that gives us understanding, maybe validation, but maybe not putting all of our eggs in the
Mm,
friendship basket there. I think I've heard this from other folks too. It's just that like I think as adoptees we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to automatically
sure.
feel kinship with each other
Hmm.
and then a lot of internal shame when we don't feel that with each
Yeah.
other or a lot of shame if other people aren't fitting into what we think, oh, this is what a conscious or out of the fog adoptee is like
Sure.
or something. And I think that, the shared adoptee experience is something that can and I think is really powerful. It means we have this history and this legacy that we are connected to. And it's something that does connect us and unites us. But I think there's a lot of stuff we can do with that too. A lot of like
Yeah.
political mobilizing, right? Mobilizing for adoptee rights and social justice overall, that I think is mm, a lot more attainable within the
Hmm.
adoptee community than trying to like force this sense of intimacy that may or may not be there because we're humans. And
Yeah.
uh yeah, so that's my little soapbox, I guess,
Yeah.
of
I hear it.
let's all chill out and just be nice to each other and like try and make the world a
Hmm.
better place, I guess.
Yeah. It's like it's like we're all part of this community, but you don't have to be like everybody, you don't have to be each other's best friend. Like that is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, I think someone put it at like, this thing that we didn't choose for ourselves is not going to be the thing that
Hmm.
uh again, it'll bring us together, but it might not, be the thing that forms our deepest friendships or something.
Right.
It's pretty hard to connect over something that was out of your control.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that there's not a connection there.
Exactly.
So yeah, but
That
but
was
it's
yeah.
yeah, but the adopted community's dope, and
Yeah.
I never say dope. That was gross. But I think there's a lot of power though in our community that
Sure.
I think we're all still figuring out how to tap into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be an ongoing and changing conversation too.
Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I'm just also really grateful to like all the work that older adoptees, did for us, have been doing since like the 80s and 90s to
Hmm.
mobilize and organize and kind of create space for like now. Um, Jay ran and her blog called it like an adoptee renaissance last
Mm,
year with like all these like memoirs and stuff and research and social media
yeah.
stuff coming out, right? I think it's really cool to see kind of that legacy just like appearing in all these different kind of sectors of the world. So yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. And where can people find you?
Mm, nowhere. I am I am kind of in hibernation a lot, but professional stuff, I am on LinkedIn. It is not always updated, but I exist there and I do check it sometimes, which is under Gray Shoe Girla. And then Instagram that I don't update, but I am scrolling on No Grace No, all one word.
Hmm.
And you'll know it's me because there's like infographics of me trying to recruit people to my research. Yeah, that's, I think, another good place. And then email is always fine
Hmm.
to gracegirlaugh@gmail.com. I have
Perfect.
like 5 emails actually, but I think that's
One of the many.
one of the many. Yeah, yeah. I've got like 3 spam emails from childhood that are like angels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
005838 or something
exactly.
like that. Yes. Oh, we all have those for
Yep,
sure.
I get to give them at like the store when they're like, "Can I get your email
All
address?"
right.
Although I've gotten better at just saying, "No,
Yeah.
you
Like, no
cannot have my
thanks.
email address."
Yeah, I was like, here you go. No, I don't want your email. But
Yep, yep.
um, well, Grace, this was great.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
some people might reach out to you because you're, of course, doing studies related to adoption. And sometimes people ask me, and like, I don't know anything. So go talk to Grace.
You're welcome to send people my way. I might not have answers, but I might be able to also
Right.
send them to another
To another
person.
person. Exactly. That's how this
Yeah,
works. It's like, oh,
yeah,
I don't know. You talk to that person, and you're just like, I
exactly.
don't know. You go talk to, so yeah, you will
Yeah.
find whoever you need to
It's just
find
a
if you're
little
looking.
game of telephone. I usually am like,
Exactly.
honestly, I know you kids hell hate Facebook, but Facebook is where it's at. Just post in like subtle Asian adoptee
Yeah.
traits, and someone will probably
Yeah.
know the
Comment or
answer.
something.
Yeah.
Yep,
Um,
it's true.
yeah. So
The
get on
power of
Facebook,
social media.
kids.
Yeah, I know, right? Get on Facebook, guys. I shouldn't say guys, but yeah, get on Facebook, everyone. But yes, well, this is great. Thanks for
Yeah.
chatting.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck. I guess I'm sure the holiday season's very busy for you right now.
It will be busy, and that's okay. And then I'll
You'll get your steps in at
get some
least.
steps in, and then when the semester starts again, because it kind of works out, but I'll get a
Yeah.
break when the semester ends,
Okay.
because
Are
a lot
you
of
in
my
school
work,
too?
no, a lot of my work is with the semesters because I model at all the art schools and stuff. So when they are on
Oh,
break,
cool.
I don't
Yeah.
have work, but when they come
Yeah.
back, which I think is usually like mid-January,
Yeah.
then I'll start working again. So it's like, all
Okay.
right, it
Yeah.
works. I get like kind of a month to recuperate and do my
Yeah.
taxes,
Oh
and then get
God,
on it
I
again.
forgot. Oh, why didn't anyone tell me that's gonna happen again next year, tax
Oh my
season?
gosh. One of the
Every
things
year
of
it
being
comes
an
around. I'm
adult.
like, no one told
Yeah.
me about this.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting
Mm.
this.
Yeah, the stuff you have to learn this as an adult, and you're like, well, gotta pay taxes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I gotta
Unless
worry
you're a
about that.
billionaire, then you don't, apparently.
Oh my gosh, that's American politics. That could be its own podcast, and
Oh, I'm sure there's many. Yeah.
I'm sure there's many episodes about this already,
Yeah.
so it's all good. But I
Yeah.
always like to say bye for now.
Yes, bye for now.
And
If you're ever in Chicago.
yeah, oh, I hope to
Yeah.
be because I want
Yeah.
to run the Chicago Marathon sometime. So
Good for you. I don't
you're
run.
like, and I'm out.
And I will watch the Chicago Marathon.
Yeah, it's one of the major marathons. Yeah, I was like, I would like to run Chicago, partially because it's flat, and also it's just,
Yes.
I was like, it's a U.S. marathon. I've gone out of the country. This is
You do
totally
marathons?
do
Good
marathons.
for you.
So I did Tokyo and I did Berlin. I've done New
That's
York,
so
but
cool.
I'd like to do Chicago,
Chicago, there's Boston, of course.
Boston. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like because these are the six majors. There's a seventh one now, but the original six majors, I'm trying to like do some of them. So
Yeah.
it's like I want to do Chicago.
Good for you. I did track in high school, but I was a sprinter. Like I did the 100 meter because it would be over the fastest.
Yeah, it's
So,
quick. That's quick.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Um,
Not now.
a
Not now.
marathon, no, thank you. Yeah. You
So
can keep that
maybe.
26 miles. Yeah.
So it's like maybe I'll see some of these people in Chicago eventually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's windy here, but it's nice.
Yes, and
Yeah.
cold.
It's honestly, it's not much. It's not
Huh.
much colder than New York.
Oh, okay. Maybe
If you
as a
can handle
kid.
New York winters, it's
I'm
fine.
fine. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll take it. It's the wind then, maybe. That's why I think it's the wind.
It's the wind. Yeah, sure. Winter is just cold, I've decided. Like, as
Yeah.
someone from Minnesota, I'm like, it's all cold and it sucks. We should all just move to Texas.
Yeah. Or like Southern California or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you as well. Happy holidays if you're celebrating too.
Sure.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
And thank you for listening to ABC, Adoptees Born in China podcast. This is Tara. You can reach me at adoptedbabiesfromchina@gmail.com or Adoptees Born in China pod on Instagram and Facebook. Have a great one. Bye.